Welcome to BIA, Canada's top black media provider. Whether you're looking for shows on fashion, art, music, or simple lifestyle, we bring you the best content the black community in Canada has to offer and so much more. And better yet, do you have an idea for a project you'd like us to help you with? We provide equipment, studio, and office space, as well as a team of dedicated individuals to help you bring those ideas to life. So don't wait. Check out our new website at biamedia.ca for more information on how to contact us and start creating today. BIA Media, your way.
Hello, and welcome to Getting Real with Paula. My name is Paula Alphonse, and tonight we are discussing storytelling with Georgia Varjas. At first glance, Georgia is a book writing coach and with 4 books of her own. But more than her writing skills and her coaching skills, Georgia is a wise soul, a feminist, and a woman who believes that women have a legacy that has been ignored for far too long. She's with us tonight to touch on the most powerful tool that we each have within us that is still to this day underutilized for most women. Without further ado, let's welcome Georgia, and thank you for having you here. It's gonna be a great conversation. I already feel it.
Yes, me too. That was such a beautiful introduction. I'm blushing.
Oh, well, that's just too much with your shirt. So let's not worry about that. I'll start maybe by asking you to introduce yourself. Give us a bit of sense of who you are, what you do, and, how long have you been in the writing industry? I know you've done way more, way more than being a coach in writing for writing books, but let's hear what you want to say.
So for me, the writing began as soon as I could hold a pencil in my hand, when I realized how powerful the pen was as a way to express myself without having to talk to anybody, without being told off, without being silenced, without being anything interrupted. And I first started writing dialogue because I loved the conversation. I loved the idea of dialogue between 2 people that was just nouns and verbs, action, nouns and verbs and action, and conflict and resolution. And I used to write these like 2 to 3 minute little dramas between 2 people, maybe a third. And it was just so exciting. So that was my early memory of getting into expressing myself with words.
Thank you. You're describing something that we do every day without even thinking, but you make it sound so much more exciting than what we give acknowledgement for. And in that context, I'm going to ask you to give us a bit of an overview of what your career path is from that moment where you first discovered that love of writing and how things evolved over the years.
Well, I think a lot of us are not encouraged to be creative at school. And so, you can't write, you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, you mustn't sing. There's a whole song about that. and you get put off, and then you reach 16 or 18 and suddenly the world is there and you have to do something. And for me, it was always relying on my own skills. I didn't want to, and I have never, I'm so proud to say, worked for anybody. Never. I never did a 9 to 5 or a 4 to 10 or a 3 to 6 for anybody, because I always relied on my own talents and skills. And in the beginning, they weren't very many. So I was kind of brazen and making it up as I went along and pretending I could do things, and then making loads of mistakes and enjoying some of them because I learned. I learned from them. So I went into playwriting, I went into performance poetry, I went into music, and I was learning, I learn as I go. I'm that kind of girl, I learn as I go. And I kept up a good front, most of the time.
What I'm hearing is that sense of being a bit of a rebel and going against the grain. And I totally understand when you say we send kids to school, and technically, and that's an observation I've always made for myself and for my kids. It's as though they run through a process where just don't think through it, just do what we say. And then by the time they finish or done through that school system, this is where for the first time they have to think and do things on their own, because there's no specific deliverable that has been decided by someone else. So totally agree with you. It's this part where all of a sudden I'm an adult and I have to figure out my own. So if it's not even encouraged at home, then this is the challenge we might have. I know you've written 4 books, and I see some of them on the shelf in the back. And I'd like you, if you don't mind, just to give people a sense of what it is, because I've read or I've touched on some of your books, and they're not the typical to me. They're not the typical. So I'll ask you to pick any book you want and maybe read something in them that means something or says something about you.
Okay, so I was very proud of my book, Words on the Wild Side. It's a collection of poems and prose. And I was so determined to do it because I'd been performing poetry and I was getting very mixed reactions, especially when I went to the United States. They had these slam competitions where you had to get up on stage in a team and you'd be scored by the audience. And I always got a really bad score, but really bad scores. But after, when I went backstage, people would come backstage and say, have you got a little book? Have you got a little pamphlet? Have you got any of your poems written down? I want to read them, but I don't want to tell everybody that I'm reading them, So then I doubled my price. Okay, so it really encouraged me that sometimes with performance, people have to get used to your accent, your way. I was too provocative. I was too, I was trying to engage the audience too much. I was throwing questions at them and they didn't like that style, let's say. So the writing was a great way to do it. And I found that in the book, I was able to write about the injustices that bothered me a lot. Topics that really wound me up and made me curse in 3 languages. And because somehow when it's written, it's more accepted. It's like, oh, she's calm now. She's writing. And so I thought it was a very good way for a woman to express some of the injustices that were going on. And one in particular, it's just come to me this minute, is also about, at that time, there was a prison in, I have to look at the index here. There was a prison in the Almond Orchard. It was a prison in Kabul. I know it was in Badam Bagh, and it was the first women's prison in Afghanistan. And the name was Almond Orchard. And behind that, the story behind that is that women used to be put in men's prisons. And so they would be stuck in a small prison cell, 6 by 6 feet, inches, whatever, tiny, with other men. And in a country where women had, you couldn't show your eye without being cursed, must have been very tough. So they built this new prison. I don't know why they put women in prison anyway. But
that's a different conversation indeed. Yeah.
That's another conversation, why they put women in prison, especially in a country like that. So it was about, the women had their children with them, which was, quite revolutionary, as we know. In the West, that doesn't happen. So I was just looking at that beautiful idea of, if you're going to lock up a woman, and why was another question, but bring her children with her. Let those children be with the mother, so that she has that and the children have the mother. They were youngsters, mostly 5-6-year-olds, that kind of thing. So that was the poem. That was the idea of the poem, that it was better than before in a Kabul jail, walled up in a 6x4 with 3 men who took their turn to ease their shame and shove the blame on her. Yeah, powerful.
Yeah. It says it all, because as soon as you've mentioned that, the fact that women would be in jail, one woman with multiple men, it's just like, isn't it obvious what is going to happen?
Yeah.
And how can that woman in such a regimen in a country where they have no voice can actually say something about it? So, oh, wow.
Yeah. So those were the topics that I did poem. I read that poem once in front of an audience, and they were like, they couldn't respond.
It's so controversial, and I think it's in general, people don't like, how could I explain? It's not that they just don't like controversy. It's just the being put in front of a situation where I can't figure out how to address it. It's that discomfort.
Yes.
Where you're telling me something, and the way you're telling me, there should be some action or reaction. And I'm not comfortable either way.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, because
it is. They don't want to face it.
In a lot of countries, in a lot of cultures, there are things we just don't talk about. We pretend do not exist. And that's a problem I would say, in the best and the worst countries. We pretend they don't exist as though they will disappear, but it doesn't. So thank you. You want to read something else? Because I know you have.
Well, I tell you, I wanted to move on to the second book I wrote, which is
Okay.
Varjas.
Let's go.
Because I'll just read a little bit from the back and give you a taste of it, because from this I got lots of questions. So I've got here a collection of 10 wickedly elegant stories about the ends and means women will go to get even, to get justice, and to get sweet revenge.
I'm already laughing on this one. So are you gonna pick one thing you want to read?
I tell you what was interesting was that the stories came from my imagination, but they're also real stories. They're stories that I know that women around the world have experienced. And so I wanted to bring home the point, what it is, how difficult it is for women to get justice. And sometimes we go to such strange extremes to get that. But, for men, it's a very different thing. Men want revenge. They get out the guns, the swords. They go out in a gang and they sort it out. Okay, there are women that do that too, we know.
Nowadays, yes.
Yeah, we know that. But generally speaking, what you do to get a little bit of justice, what you do. So sometimes you go to these extremes. And I wanted to I created a story about women who've been trafficked and were locked up. And how did they get out? How do they escape? How can a woman escape? Because I wanted to bring home how difficult it is to escape from a difficult situation when you're being dominated by a man or men. There's a lot of people who've never been in that situation think, oh, that's easy. Why don't you just walk out? It's not like that at all. So I created this crazy, wild situation that could be true. It could have happened. It didn't happen to me. Everybody wanted to know, did it happen to you? Were you there? Is that your story? And I said, it doesn't really matter if it's my story. It's a lot of women's stories. It's a lot of women. So, situations that women get into and they can't get out of. And I use my imagination to think of ways where they could get out. Some of them were a bit wicked. Some of them were, I've got a story. This is very provocative.
And I guess that's the piece I like with you, is you dare take people into their uncomfortable zone. And then that's for them to make a choice, because every single situation we have a choice to make. And then that also tells you, and sometimes it's there that you find out that I'm not sure I like me as much as I thought I did. So, yeah, that comes with certain realization. So,
because they made that comedy film with Dolly Parton and 9 to 5, where they hung up the boss and kept him out of the way. They fed him, but they strung him up in the middle of his office. And they got on with the business and they made the company run and they provided creche, and it was brilliant. And that was a kind of revenge story, but it was done in a comedic way and it worked very well. So I took that idea, if you like, and played with it. What happens if we change roles round? If we get women to do the things that men do? Ooh. So I've got this.
Got my attention.
I've got this story here called Rambo Lady. And basically, she kidnaps 6 men and ties them up to a chair. And she doesn't sexually torture them, which probably would happen if it was the other way around. But she just psychologically tortures them by keeping them in a chair, not giving them any explanation, feeding them and, all that, keeping them alive happily. But that humiliation, that is so easy for...
It's the control.
Yeah, so Rambo Lady. So things like that, where I reverse the roles and imagine what it was like. And it's obvious that it's crazy and wild, but think about it for a minute. Could it happen?
That's exactly it. And sometimes you say things in a funny approach that's for people to extract the true meaning of the story. And that's the part, because, as you say, there are injustices between the two genders. And even though we are better than it was a century or 2 centuries ago, there is still room to grow.
Yes, there is.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to another question I had, which was, can you tell us a little more about what you describe as your 3 little C's, which is the cooking, cleaning, and caring? And then you also have the big C's. What do these really mean nowadays for women?
Okay, so my premise is that cooking, cleaning, and caring are the 3 most important skills that they should teach girls and boys at school from as early age as possible. Those are the 3 most important things: how to care for yourself and other people, how to feed yourself, nourishing good food that keeps you healthy, and how to keep your life clean, physically, emotionally, spiritually, anything Lily, all the things that are important. These are the 3 most important things. And if you look around the world where they teach these skills to men as well, to young boys, they grow up to be much more wholesome because they know how to look after themselves. They know how to make those decisions for themselves. But when oh, I'm so sorry about this.
It's okay.
I did turn it off. So, you know,
Technology, we live with it. That's fine.
yeah, I did turn it off. So when we are told, yes, to look after ourselves, to cook and clean for ourselves, the importance of it, but when it's all on us, when it's our responsibility to do that, how can we form relationships? How can we form healthy relationships with people who are expecting those things from us as part of an arrangement of loving each other? You know, it just does. That's not logical. And I think the wonderful Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi talks about this. Why do we teach girls that marriage is everything? You will learn to cook and clean and worship and love, and men, they're not taught any of these things. So immediately these relationships are doomed. They're doomed. But if we learn to share how to cook, clean, and care for each other, as well as ourselves, first yourself and then others, then the balance is there. We will pay more attention. You know,
Because
we will
it's meant
show.
to be that two-way street. And I know even with I have girls, so it's a completely different conversation. And for me, it was always about being self-sufficient. And in my approach, and when I look at the way my sisters raise their kids, some of them are boys, it's the same thing. Everybody needs to learn those basics because no one is there to look after the other ones. So it's this part where, as you say, it's a two-way street. But certain cultures, you know, certain environments,
Yeah, it's more difficult. Yeah, and yet, you know, a lot of men are very capable of doing cooking, cleaning, and caring. They're just as capable of doing it. There's nothing in a man's brain that says they can't cook or clean or care. Absolutely nothing.
that's true.
And so what is it that makes them think that they don't or they can't do it? Or what makes women say,
Choice.
yes.
It is a choice, and it's a choice on both sides. If I see myself as a woman, and my most valued contributions are to cook, clean, and care for you and your kids, our kids, then you know, if I'm not getting that sense of appreciation, consideration, and transformation, then it feels like something's not adding up. Feel like I'm not getting anything back from that trade-off. So it's this part where how do we put a little more common sense on both sides there?
It is common sense because, you know, to look after yourself is a wonderful thing. To care for, you know, to put yourself first, to not feel that you have a duty and obligation always to look after him and her and it and this and that, and it's too much, and we lose ourselves in the process. So instead of teaching us nonsense about previous wars and what the Romans did to the Greeks and what they did to this lot and that lot and all that warmongering, why don't we teach each other or teach children how to cook, clean, and care in the most, you know, fulfilling way, and to read and write?
Yeah, that still not optional. You still have to learn these.
Yeah, you got to do that.
And then your big C's, because those are the small C's, as you were calling it, and then there's the big C's. Tell us about the big C's.
Well, they are my big 3 vitamin C's, because it's all about confidence to ask for what you want, the courage to get up and do it, and creativity to keep you going when the going gets tough. So, you know, we all need confidence to ask for what we want and to find out what it is that we really want, because a lot of people don't even get to that stage. They don't know what they want. Oh, maybe this, maybe, I don't know. I'll make a vision board and look at it for 10 years. And then they don't do anything, you know, they don't take the action.
You could have put it a little, how could I say, nicer and say for 2 to 3 years. She goes 10 years. You just wasted a decade.
It's direct language, darling. It's
Oh
just,
yeah, I think that's what I like about you. It's this part where it's the no filter, it's the tell it like it is. And I think as women, we need a lot more of that information because we're often raised to be people pleaser and to I see the eye rolling. To be people pleaser and be the ones that are supposed to pay attention to everything around us and make it work as if that in itself is our only role.
yeah. So it's, and you're criticized if you don't please and offer and, give. I was very unpopular because I didn't, make a drink or offer food or this, that, and the other when I had male visitors. You want something? Go and get it. Bring it back. I'm not
Bring
cooking
some
for
for the
you.
two of us.
Yeah, you want to cook? Cook.
Mhm,
Bring it over. Take me out.
mhm,
I'm dressed. Look. So it's about standing up for yourself as well
yeah,
and recognizing that you have not so much a right, but it's a kind of self-respect.
yeah, definitely.
Self-respect.
Definitely. And for me it's both, as you said, about courage and confidence because the two of them go together. Sometimes I don't have enough confidence, but I have the courage. Sometimes I don't have the courage, but I have the confidence. And
Yes.
that's how do we get to that balancing act where I can use all of those three because creativity is how we get through life.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
this is what to me this is the salt and pepper of life,
Mm.
creativity. If you don't have that, it feels like, ooh, the Truman Show. It's like wake up every day, do the same thing, come back every night, do the same thing, wake up next day, and there's no change. That's there's no inspiration in being
Yeah.
like that.
I think you put that very beautifully because we often think, I mean, you hear it, I'm sure you hear it too, that, oh, I'm not creative. Oh, I can't do this. And it's because we don't recognize that all the time. I think especially women, we find creative solutions to situations.
Mhm.
And so it's about redefining those words and courage. I've got a lot of sunlight here now.
Oh,
And
please, we
courage.
like.
And courage is, we really need to redefine that word because a lot of people think courage is Superman and Spider-Man and Superwoman and all this. It's not. It's those everyday things that we do that we have the courage to say, okay, I'll handle that. I haven't driven my car for ages, but I'll manage it today. I'll do it. It's those little things in life. And finding that creative, I'll put the music on, I'll be jolly. It's those little things. And so it's redefining that word for yourself.
And I totally appreciate how you're presenting it because I remember being a younger person with my parents and very creative from the artistic perspective. And you remember things people say and do where it's just like, yeah, that's nice, but please focus on your books and please do this. And it's this part where in some environment, the portion about the intellect and education in order to fit in somebody else's mold is more important than creativity. But then at the same time, we all need a bit of a balance. We can't be focused on being totally productive and adding additional knowledge, but then not enjoying life.
Yeah, it is a balance, and a lot of people have taken on this what's the phrase, workaholic attitude. That's not me. That's not me. And I do my work because I love my work, but when I'm done, I'm done. Leave me alone. I want to go and relax and recover and revitalize and refresh.
And you're saying this, and what comes to mind is, even in the religious background, sometimes it feels like we have to carry our burden, our load, and blah, blah, blah. And I like to remind people, but you do realize that Jesus did take breaks. remove himself from people, relaxed, and get in contact with himself and his father. So that's we all need to do a bit of that. Because if you don't, then the work will just stripe you of any
Yes.
sense of who you are.
And it will show, and people will not believe you because you'll be drained. You drain your energy, and people pick up on energy.
Yeah.
They pick up
And
on
the
your
attention,
vibrancy.
if you're working all the time, there's so many everyday little things that you no longer see. So you're no longer present in your daily reality. So anyway, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective.
If I was to ask you, what would be the 3 hardest lessons you have learned in your entrepreneurial journey? Let's be honest, you've never had a boss. So trust me, you must have learned a few things along the way.
Well, first of all, the word that stands out to me is the word hard. Now, when somebody says to me, how was that hard? Was that difficult? I don't really look at it like that. I know it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as a challenge. I see it as my attitude, my perspective on it, how flexible I am, how flexible I am to deal with it, to work around it, and how much do I want it, my perseverance.
I love it because, I will have to reframe my questions. I love it because it's this part where I would have said the most valuable lesson you've learned, and you would have still pulled out those elements that are pertinent. So going back to that question, though, I still want to know, what were those little gems that you could share?
Well, I think, having been in showbiz and working in teams a lot, I think the hardest thing was starting the business on my own, not having people around me, experienced professional people around me to say, look, why don't you try this? Or, oh, that's great. Or, some encouragement, support, professional input, ideas. I definitely needed that. And I was running around, making lots of mistakes. That was really hard. Yeah, that was hard, doing it on my own. Mm-hmm. I think that was hard. And then the second thing, which is very typical from somebody from my background, is that I was doing all these like master classes and webinars and things like that, but I didn't know how to convert the people into clients. I didn't have those techniques because when I was in show business, I was up on the stage. If you wanted to come and see me, go and buy your ticket over there and leave me alone. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't know that connection, that thing. And it was a wonderful young Irish woman who said to me, you need to get that language right, first of all. You need a little bit more sales language. You need to be able to put clearly across what it is that you're offering. You need to bring out what their obstacles are. You need to, she kind of framed it for me so that within 6 questions, I got it. I'm a quick learner. I wasn't going to flounder around for another year. What shall I do? What's going on? Because I was doing these masterclasses like they were my friends. Coming along, Mm-hmm. I just didn't get that little thing there. So that was hard for me, yeah. That was tough. And then, of course, for, a lot of girls, especially in my age group, the technology drove me nuts. And, there's that impatience. I'm an ambitious person, but I'm also impatient. And that's like a crazy combination, Paula. That's a really crazy combination.
I can relate. I can relate. And my kids tell me all the time, and I should stop calling them my kids because they're young adults. And it's just when I have an idea in my head, it's clear. This is how we do it. This. And then if the technology is not coming the way I want it, it's just like, You may not have to take a class to learn how to do this, and like, that is not the best use of my time. And that's the part, and I totally understand the ambitious and the impatient. So
Oh,
how
yes.
do we marry the two? And this is where we go back to your first thing. It's about the support, the network, and understanding who can come in and help on different elements.
Yes.
I think for any entrepreneurs, this is a huge piece, understanding that not everything you have to do yourself.
Yeah. I think it's the art of delegation. When you invest in yourself, which you have to do, and that's a financial investment, then the first thing you do is you get yourself a VA. That's the first thing I did. So I said, well, I can't do this. I can't do this. Please control all my passwords. Please do this. Please do this. And then I was like,
hallelujah.
That song.
Finding the right virtual assistant is key. And once you do, you want to hold that individual forever. Not hostage, but you want to keep her around or him around, because there's so many things that you could learn, but then at the same time, is there an interest? Often mentioned when we talk about that. Yes, I could learn to do an oil change on my car. Well, why would I do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this the best use of my time? There's no interest. I hate dirtying myself and clothes, and then I'm left with the sense, have I done it right? No.
Yes.
You pay someone and it's well done. And if there's a problem, that's for them to deal with.
Exactly.
So it's
exactly.
small little things.
So it's a great learning process, because you have to let go.
When I was younger, I remember, was it my dad? Or was it, anyway, I can't remember who told me. For everything you want, try to do it yourself first.
Yeah.
And once you know what it means, you decide whether I want to keep doing it or not. And that's pretty much been my approach. There are certain things where I know how it's done, but there is no interest for me to do this. Yeah. So I can delegate that. Go to someone else, and that's taken care of.
Exactly. So I have this thing about Excel. I absolutely hate Excel. It's like Mercury. It moves all the time. And so for me, Excel is a verb.
Excel.
It's not a program. It's not a program. I excel at what I do. You excel at what you do, etc. A program. Don't talk to me about programs called Excel.
Okay. So thinking to your life journey and some of the lessons you've mentioned, how have those influenced the person that you are today? That's a big question. Sorry.
That's a big question. I think, for me, it is about believing in yourself and recognizing your value, your achievements, and knowing it. In some societies, it's considered bragging and showing off. I always ignored that.
Mm-hmm.
I have always ignored that. And, when I'm happy, I dance. And if somebody's looking, enjoy. Enjoy it. Listen.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, believe in yourself and have that confidence to make the most of your life. Otherwise, it goes, boom, the years pass, and then you think, why didn't I should have, and you live a life of regret. Isn't that what they say?
Do that to yourself.
No, you can't do that. So I think it is about, not being so self-conscious and worrying about overthinking and over-labeling. Everything has to have a label. Don't give me a label. Don't label things. Just accept them as they are, understand. You don't have to label it. And don't overthink. Over-analyzing everything. Oh.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but it's still a challenge for a lot of women, those elements there.
Yes.
You stated that as a woman, our voice and our pen are our most powerful tool.
Yes.
Would you mind expanding on that?
Well, most of us, not all of us, have the gift of writing. There are still lots of young women who have not learned to write, but we have a voice. And for those of us who have that ability to write, we have these two amazing ways to express ourselves, to ask for what we want, to go and get what we want, to ask the right price for it, to say no, to say yes. The most powerful words in our language are yes and no and leave me alone.
Walk away.
For a woman, you know.
Mhm.
What was the expression I learned the other night? Say less. Very nice. Say less. So, you know, we have this ability, and we have seen, I say this a lot, but we've seen all those road movies by men. There have been so many books written by men about what women say and what women do. No. It's time now for us women to write those rude movies as well, to express us and tell our stories. No, it wasn't like that. It was like this. No, I didn't sit down and cry. I got up and did this. No, I didn't say, please give me more of that terrible life. I didn't. I stood up and I fought back. So it is about giving us the opportunity to, you know, to write those stories, to tell the world those amazing experiences that we've had and how we approach things from a very different point of view.
And in the corporate world, which I was part of at one point, it always, the structure always made you feel as though you needed to think about things or behave, act on things according to that man's perspective. If you were to bring it from a different perspective, it felt like, I'm not sure that's going to work. And I am hoping as the youngest generation are taking a little more space in those various environments, that we can hear their voices, because indeed there's so much to be told. There's so many different ways, and I am so tired of hearing that comment that women are too emotional. And it's just like, get a grip. You mean to tell me you don't have any emotion? I'm like, please. We see it all the time. When you refuse to stop to ask for direction, what is that? That's an emotion driving you. Anyway, so what would be those 3 nuggets that you would give to women interested in sharing their stories, be it in a book or on the stage or in everyday life?
I think it's about asking yourself quietly, privately, what is it that you really, really want to express? Because so many say, oh, I want to write a book about, and then once you start digging, so there was one woman I knew, she wanted to write a book about her family experiences. I said, okay, but what is it exactly? What's the point of it? Because you could see there was a lot of emotion and drama and that she wanted to tell, but she wasn't ready to tell those stories. There was something else. And what her real story was the independence that she gathered from the difficult life she had that took her into amazing things, where she traveled and on her own in places that I'd be scared to go, you know. Courage is so different for all of us.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you know. So it's about understanding what it is that you really, really, really want to say and really want to talk about. You know, people have these signature speeches, or you know, even when you do a speech, you start with the writing. You make bullet points, you make notes, or you write the script, whichever way you do it. You start with the writing. So the writing is a great way for you to communicate between your brain, your memory, your heart, your soul, and put it through your hand. And out comes the magic. If it's going to be a speech, you turn it into a colloquial style. You cut out this, that, and the other. You add a little punctuation here and there, which is breath, or gesture. You know, in the spoken word, we have gesture and breath. In the written word, we have punctuation. You know, so it's the most wonderful way to express yourself through the writing and through the speaking. And when you write, you gain I mean, people use the word transformation a lot, but when you start to write your story and you let it go and you reveal it and you pepper it with so many of your life experiences, it's just the most, uh, it's an elevating experience. You feel proud of yourself. You recognize your achievements. Your smile grows. Your kudos. Your shoulders get. You feel fabulous because you think, my God, I am something. I am somebody. I am a wonderful woman. I have something great to offer that somebody else will benefit from or not feel so lonely.
And I'm hearing you because when you start writing, you have an intention, you have an idea. And by the time you get to the finished product, this is often where you realize, oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. So it's both a beautiful melody that allows you to get to that point where it's as though you flip the script and it becomes, let's start with this, and this is the process I used. And as you say, writing is huge. Being
Yes.
able to write, and not just write in terms of transferring information, but leaving those moments, leaving those experiences, being able to allow other people
Yeah.
to be in that story, that reality with you. So that's, anyway, you know what you do. So I'm not even going to explain it. So thank you for that.
So I
What?
tell you another thing that I would
Yes.
also encourage for writers, so understand, knowing and digging deep and understanding what it is that you really, really want to say. And then it's another kind of personal transformation, if you like, of realizing that you could do it. You can do it. You need the structure, you need the strategy, you need the accountability, you need a bit of brainstorming, you need professional help, paid or unpaid. That's your decision. But don't suffer alone and give up or lose motivation. Find somebody who knows more than you to work with.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for many things in life.
It's like everything in life.
It is.
To me, I always see value in having someone or talking to someone who's been through something before me. So, be it a parent, be it a friend, be it the generations that have crossed certain bridges, and in your mind, those bridges don't even need to be there no more. And then you find out, oh no, there might be glass bridges now, but there's still a bridge, a distance that you have to cover. So
Yes.
it's nice to understand what's the story behind,
Yes.
and that's something that we have to keep figuring out. How do we share those stories? It
Mhm.
could be you talking to someone, it could be you writing about it, but there's different ways. And I totally agree that voice and pen are two tools that every single woman should use, even if it's just to validate that what was charged to you at XYZ was actually the right price. So it's this part where it can be used for so many different situations, but then at the same time, it allows you to take control back over
Mm.
that reality that you want to live,
Yeah.
that you want to be learning from. So
Yes. Absolutely. Beautifully said. And you see, that would be the third thing I would say, is to really redefine those three big C's: confidence, courage, and courage. Redefine them for yourself. Don't go by other people's rules and definitions. Find your own. Because when you recognize, that confidence is not something that's going to be a wall around you all your life.
mhm,
It's going to come and go. And so understand that you are human. You're allowed to have
mhm,
days when your confidence, as you said at the beginning, is not so good, but maybe you have a little more courage or creativity. So keep those things, in front of you, and in a, as you say, getting real in a realistic way.
mhm. And I don't think I've ever really thought about it like this, the way you present it in the sense of those three big C's. But when I look back to my journey, oh my God, there were situations where it's the courage that got me to do something. And then that courage allowed me to build the confidence to do it over.
Yes.
And sometimes the creativity allowed you to go through a situation where you couldn't see any way out. And also then it's just like, there's that slimmer of light right about here. And it's just like, let me try. And then boom, again, it goes back to courage and confidence.
Absolutely.
And I totally agree. I wouldn't have voiced it like that, but you know what? I might adopt your three C's as well, if you don't mind.
You said it beautifully. You gave a brilliant example of how you intertwine those three C's, and you use one day and then the other one, and then you mix them up in a different. Once you recognize, so I think that's really important. Once you recognize you have these tools, they're available to you. Use them, build them, grow them.
And no one can take those away from you. No one. And it's about you ensuring that I keep developing them, because there will always be a situation where it feels as though, oh, I am so not sure about this. But then you remember other situations where you said the same thing and you said, aced it. So now bring it back, that power, that sense of, if you did it once, you can do it over again.
Yes, yes.
So what would be one key message you want to leave with our listeners?
Well, I think it's very important that you have to, there needs to be a certain amount of discipline in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you find that word ugly because it reminds you of school or the army or a wicked uncle or somebody horrible, redefine that word, change that word. Yeah. You have the power to change all the meanings of words and redefine them for yourself. A lot of words nowadays have lost their meaning. Truth and freedom are two that first come to my mind. Nobody knows what they mean anymore. You know what I mean? There's one thing. So, if you want to get on in life, don't use words like, oh, I can't do it, I'm no good. Mm-hmm. Just a little discipline and get on with it. Mm-hmm. Put your mind to it, put your body to it, focus down. You really want it, go for it. And I love the idea of people doing vision boards. I personally don't, because I hate cutting paper. I'm not going to cut up paper for anybody. And then you slap it on the one and you go, oh yeah, I've got that lovely car up there. I think people need to take more action. Mm-hmm. Make a decision and take the action.
Yeah. And then stick to that thing that you first identified as being important for you. Yeah. Because what's important for you might not be somebody else's high degree factor. So it's for you to figure it out. And I can play for or do other things for other people, but until I figure out what's my thing to do, because I strongly believe that we each have a specific role to play in our lives. And for some, it could be about the kids. From others, it could be about that business. For other people, it could be the art that they're creating so that it enrich somebody else's lives. But figure out what nourishes your soul. And then from there on,
yeah, exactly.
You will be doing what you love instead of trying to love what you're doing.
Yes,
exactly. Because, we all know this thing about trying to love doesn't work so great.
No.
There's certain things you can only practice so long before it gets clear. We ain't doing no more of that.
I think we just have to take a bit more responsibility for what we do and say.
Definitely. So, yeah. How can people get in contact with you or hear about some of the magic that you create?
Well, thank you so much, first of all. I've so enjoyed talking with you from across the sea in different time zones and different temperatures.
Yes.
And it's very, I love these connections, discovering new things and different angles and different approach. And then we find we have so much in common, because I do believe that people have more in common than they have different.
Totally agree.
So if people want to find me, my name is very unusual. And if you spell it right and you put it into any of the search engines, you will see my website will come up. And you will also see my LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I have videos and posts and quotes and lots of things about the programs that I'm doing. I'm working now with a wonderful woman. We're doing this rewriting your wealthy mindset story. So it's all about asking for, charging your worth and writing with compelling language. So we're starting that course very soon, that program. And I'm always up to something. I'm a busy girl, I love what I do. And of course, I have these wonderful writers. So if anybody's got an idea for a book and they're tempted or they're curious, you'll find information on my LinkedIn page mostly. I'm not really on other social medias too much at the moment because I find one is enough. One keeps me going, I have a tinkling here and there, but LinkedIn is mostly. And
Thank you.
so I hope that you have enjoyed it as much as I have, Paula, because it was really fabulous to talk to you this afternoon where I am in your morning.
And I love it. I love it. I love it because what I realize is there are what we call kindred spirits. And you're one of these for me. It's just those parts where there's that sense of alignment on some of the things. I'm not gonna say for people who are watching, that doesn't mean we have to become best friends and everything stops. That's not it. It's recognizing that there are people that come into your journey and there's a message that they're passing on.
Yes,
and that message will allow you to move to the next step.
yes.
And in that conversation, what I really love is also realizing I'm all about continuous learning. And when you mentioned that you're taking a course, so some people would say, but you're giving courses. Yes, but that doesn't mean I can't still keep learning. Because for me, as long as we keep learning, our minds stay alive, curious,
Yes.
and stimulated.
Yes.
Once we stop, this is where all of a sudden, might as well be dead.
Yes. There's a wonderful musician called Richard Bona. He's a bass player. And he has a saying that he says that the more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn.
Yes.
And
I would say this is where we say drop the mic.
Yep.
For me, this is it. So thank you very much for this wonderful conversation. And I'm looking forward, and I've got some of your books. I'm looking forward to keep immersing myself in some of your wisdom. And I know it's been a wonderful experience for me. So
I'm so grateful that you chose me to come on and have this conversation with you, because I think we've really, as you said, we've explored beautiful topics. There's been there's been an understanding of wise woman talk.
Yeah, because we do have a brain. We can apply it. So thank you, and you take care.